So, hey everyone, happy Friday. If you just saw me at least, hi again. Otherwise, welcome to the Dash Podcast, number 205. Done a lot of these. I'm joined by the one and only Sam Westrich here, CTO Dash Core team, here in a non-mid-journeyed self, in the real self. How's it going?
Very good. Hopefully next time I won't even have to participate. You can just mid-journey everything, right? You can even maybe give my answers with an AI. I'll just be sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then in the morning you can tell me how I did.
Yeah, absolutely. The AI Sam. Before you don't, well, if you're gonna be AI Sam, might as well just be like AI Evan. Just
Nah,
because
I
then,
like being myself.
yeah, I mean,
I like
but it
being
wouldn't
myself.
it wouldn't be you if it's But anyway,
You know,
um,
you can have Andy, AI Andy. We can have AI Bob. We can have all the tech leads over the last.
I mean, you could have AI Amanda, although I'd argue that's kind of a redundancy at this point. But anyway, so fun, pleasant chit chat. But thanks everyone for tuning in. I like giving the. This is one of my favorite podcasts to do, obviously for lots of good reasons. Splowix in the chat, saying ho ho everyone. Hi Splowik, it's not Christmas yet, but sure. Anyway, so let's just start out with kind of like the chronological type thing. So it's been quite this is like a very interesting time for Dash. The last like couple weeks plus next couple weeks, like all that. So from my understanding, version 19 of Core, which is Dash, but in the future there will be a platform version 2 on mainnet, right? That will, there'll be core and platform versions, but up until now it's just been Dash. And that's the HP sauce one, the EvoNode, the introducing the new masternode type, the evolution of masternode, which runs platform. So actually platform infrastructure is meant to be live in version 19, or that's meant to like bring it into the network. So during the upgrade process there was a little bit of a hiccup, and blocks stopped being produced for a little bit. I was in the air, I was flying, and from
Lucky,
yeah,
lucky you.
I was just finishing up. I had a nice beef and Guinness stew in the Dublin airport and had some like whiskey and stuff. I was having a good time. And then I just get on the plane and I just wake up and there's like fires everywhere. And I'm just like, all right, I got to get on another plane. And then I was exhausted. I had to sleep. And I woke up the next day, the Tuesday, and everything was fixed. Kind of. Mostly everything was fixed. So for me, nothing happened, really. One of Dash's most active users, nothing happened. But a lot happened. So why don't you just go tell the viewers at home what happened?
Yeah, sure. But to preface that, before I get started on an explanation, if you had just been using Dash like with the mobile wallets, you might not have even known something was wrong
Oh,
either,
interesting.
because the mempool still worked, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you just open it and send to a friend of yours, they would receive it through the mempool.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be confirmed, and you'd be getting a little there's a little text saying confirming, so you would know something was wrong, but you would still see transactions. So while it was really terrible for exchanges, halted withdrawals and deposits, there was a lot of it was really not good, but it could have been worse.
Yeah,
So could
absolutely.
always be worse, I guess.
So,
Yeah, so let me explain kind of like
mm-hmm.
what happened, and how well I lived through it. So first, I have to kind of explain what's in V19. V19 had two massive changes. The first was, as you said, Evo nodes, also known as high performance master nodes. That was the previous name. And that actually went very smoothly. In fact, on one of the incorrect, invalid chains that we had, somebody actually registered the first EvoNode.
Which
So,
is hilarious.
hey,
Glorious shit show.
congratulations.
Love it.
But yeah, the other one is where all shit broke loose, basically, and that was having to do with BLS upgrade. Now, BLS is a signature scheme that we use heavily. I think Dash was the first major cryptocurrency project to adopt BLS, and we did it so early that we wrote our own threshold cryptography using the aggregate
Impressive.
signature scheme. Yeah, we did a lot, right, um, on that, and it was how to. It was basically very new, and there was no standard. And fast forward 4 years later, now there is a standard, and there are more projects using it. And the new projects that start using it are using the standard. Now, internally, you have to understand that um, the not everybody understands this, but there is in cryptography there's something called public-private keys. Probably quite a lot of the viewers will understand private public keys. Basically, you have a public key that can unlock something and a private key that can kind of lock something. And um, the public and the private keys in our migration from what we were using to what we wanted to use to be on the standard, the keys themselves don't change. What does change is the representation of the key and how it's serialized. And this basically means that how, like, for example, um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm Sam. My name is Sam, and I'm Sam, right? So the name
All
is
these are
not the same
true.
thing as the person, right? And it's maybe an easy metaphor to understand serialization. So the serialization changed, meaning when you sometimes people that register masternodes, you see a BLS pub key that you have to input, or yeah, a lot of tools you'll see a key that will just be a certain amount of characters. I'm not sure how many, but those characters would change even though the underlying thing would not.
Okay.
So that's why this update allows us to migrate with keeping the deterministic masternode list going without having people needing to re-register, but at the same time, the serialization changes. So with that all done, sorry everybody who did not understand anything I said. Let's go on to what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So this was tested a lot and obviously not enough. Um, inside of um, inside of the system, we had basically a master node was moved, sold off. We're not sure. It happens from time to time. There's constant like turnover, right?
Of course.
Um, and the fact that a master node did that, and at the same time, we also had a cache invalidation on most nodes because of it's being an active network. And well, there's some internal processes that happen and that are slightly different than on testnet. We basically got into this error. Now, how to basically, when we wanted to go on the first block of V19, uh, the the block that was produced still had the master node. No, it didn't. It didn't still have it, but it was trying to delete a master node that was supposed to be deleted, but couldn't actually find it because the serialization had changed.
Yeah, so it was
Uh,
trying under the new serialization scheme, and the master was under the old scheme, and it didn't get to upgrade to the new scheme before it ended up being removed. Right? Is that kind
yeah.
of what
So
happened?
yeah. So imagine, as an analogy, my name's Sam, and in V19, my name changes to Samuel, right? And you try to the switch happens, and then you say, Sam, get out of here. But now I'm Samuel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still there, but
Or
I'm not supposed to
or
be.
Samantha. It is 2023 after all. But yeah, let's not go there too much.
Hey, actually, that was supposed to be my name
Interesting.
if I was a girl. My parents chose a name that could go either way,
Yeah, that's
but I
that's
was
good.
born a man.
Yes. So from my understanding, it seems it's like you have a certain package serial number format, and
Hmm.
at some point you change over the the way the pack, like, let's just imagine like a shipping thing. Like packages, they have one format which is numbers, like 1 through 10 or whatever, 1 through
Yeah.
100. But then instead they change to letters at some point, let's just say. But
Hmm.
before they change to letters, like one of the number packages is now like, oh, that one has broken merchandise, get rid of it. And then they're like, all right, get rid of package number 50, 54. And they're like, but there is no 54 where you only can find lettered packages. And then they're
Yeah.
like, but you have to get rid of 54. But, and then the whole conveyor belt goes, it stops. Is that kind of it?
You got it. And that is what was discovered on the day. So like I'll kind of give a brief chronology. Yeah, so like I wake up. Uh, first thing I
Welcome to your
do is I
personal hell.
yeah, first thing I do is I look at the network. Activation is happening within like 30 minutes. I get breakfast, come back. I'm like, wait, we should have had a block by now. It's like 10 minutes after the time. Looking, starting to worry. Message pasta, who hadn't slept yet, by the way. Um, the poor guy, he passed out that day from just not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a very intense day. Within a few hours, we had ideas, but the problem is that we had too many ideas. And in our retrospective of all of this, if this would ever, God forbid, happen again, we
Mm-hmm.
need to. Well, what we did is we had a big group with 8 people, and we were all trying to find it. But I don't think that in the end was the right approach because there are too many ideas, too many wrong paths that we were all trying to, get a hold on, and we should have had more of a divide and conquer with like smaller groups. But
Mm-hmm.
this is the first chain halt that we've had since 2015, so
Mm.
it wasn't very expected. Now, um, what? Yeah. So on Monday, on the day of, we found we went kind of down two approaches, right? Uh, After some period of time, there was one group who was going to make 19.1, which basically would undo the hard fork and just give us more time, and then some others, me and Odysseus and a few others, we were going to actually try to find the problem and see if we could fix it in time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened is we found the problem, not the only problem, but we found the problem basically as 19.1 was being released. Like it was ready to go. And at that point, everybody was exhausted. Like we're going on 12, 13 hours, and we were not sure if we were going to 12, 13 hours for some. Some others, it
A
was
lot.
like 22 hours. Like it was
God.
it was a long, long, long time
Mm-hmm.
being awake, right? And writing such a fix would have been very difficult under such circumstances. So yeah, we decided to go with 19.1, get the network back up and running, give us some time to really test the fix and make sure everything was good. And that was really the right call because it ended up being that there wasn't one issue, but there were actually two issues, all from the same root cause.
Mm.
And we had at the same time, we had a non-determinism issue causing, so ideally, with just the first issue, chain halt. That's it,
Mm-hmm.
right? We also saw a part of the network go down an invalid chain. And we say it's invalid because there was no way to actually connect to it. We couldn't
Mm-hmm.
find a way. We were trying. We gave that a lot of attempts, re-indexed, and we couldn't find a way to do it. And if like
Mm-hmm.
we basically like yes, if we had gone down that if we tried to go down that chain, we couldn't.
Yeah.
So it was there wasn't really anything to do. We could have maybe like tried for another week to go down that chain and maybe eventually come up with a solution. But I don't think that's what the network would have wanted, right? Because basically I mean, who knows if it could work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, and also to there's been a lot of speculation on this. There was only one miner. So it wasn't. Some people have like said that the master nodes rewrote history because the miners, um, because they disagreed with the miners. That's not what happened. Uh, when the masternode network chain locked a block, finally, it
Mm-hmm.
was actually the block with the most work.
Yeah, of
Even
course.
though this yeah, even though this chain had progressed many blocks, the amount of work that it had done was very, very small, like the equivalent of like a few blocks of work
Mm-hmm. Of course,
of
they
our
still
normal.
complained.
Yeah, but I mean, like you, there's nothing to be done. Like it's not as if we didn't try. I
Yeah, of
mean,
course.
when when we saw the network advancing, my first reaction was hallelujah. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it auto repaired itself.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. But no, that was sadly just not the case, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
So, what was the actual bug that? So, you know what happened, right? That caused the problem. But was there, like now with hindsight, right? What happened? What was the actual bug that caused that to be able to happen? Was like, yeah. So we're getting
well, yeah,
more
we
confusing
were,
over time. Yeah, but
yeah. So okay, I'm gonna go very technical just for a little bit, and
that's
people
fine.
listening at
I'll try to
home.
translate if I can understand a fraction of it.
So we put the Merkle root of the masternode list, which is basically a fingerprint of the masternode list, inside the Coinbase special transaction. That's why
Mm-hmm.
some people at home or some people were experiencing these issues, saying problem with special transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Most people understand special transaction as all the extra transactions we have for the masternode list, like creating a masternode. Um, we have we have asset locks for platform that aren't out in the future. There are we have quorum commitments. There are a lot of special transactions that we have in Dash, and they're kind of like a Dash feature. We also made the Coinbase a special transaction as well. So, but the Coinbase exists in in other projects as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, I would say, in a different category as of the others. So yeah, so the Merkle root of the masternode list is there, and since the Merkle root differed from the one it was supposed to have, it was like imagine, well, don't imagine
Mm-hmm.
there are 3,600 or so masternodes in that list, and one list is expecting uh, one of those masternodes not to be in there, and one has it in there. The
Mm.
two lists are going to differ.
Of course.
And basically, the problem was that the miners needed to remove that masternode, but they didn't know how to remove which masternode to remove. So it was
Mm.
crashing, then it was coming back, and it was adding the mass node. And yeah, so it kind of just went to just they couldn't figure out how to remove it. Like, it's not a manual process, right? They're just running code, but the code had a bug in it. And
Yeah,
couldn't remove it.
and so what kind of a fixing of the code would have made that not happen? Like, is there
Oh,
just
like how?
yeah? So
Yeah.
basically, patch. So basically, go back in time a few weeks and patch it. What gets patched?
So yeah, basically, I'm not exactly sure how the core team made this fix.
Hmm.
I know what the problem is, so I know how I would have solved it. You just have to fix the serialization to use the basic serialization instead of the or use all legacy serialization or all basic serialization,
Hmm.
and then you can figure it out. Like, I mean, in the end, this is the types of errors that are very painful
Hmm.
because they did not appear on testnet. And there's actually a second part to the problem, because under just these circumstances, the problem probably would not have appeared. The second part of the problem that also needed to happen was you needed to be on a network where, and Odysseus might say that I'm wrong after this, but this is how I understand things. Well, I know that this is a problem. I'm just not sure if without this second error, if there would had been an error or not. I
Hmm.
believe there was. There would be anyways, or yeah. So the second problem is that when we basically have snapshots that happen every so often, and this is kind of an optimization. So we don't have to we don't have to recompute the mass node list every so a lot of times. There's actually a very good explanation that Odysseus made for this um, in the last uh, um, DCG review that we did on Monday. So
Okay.
if you want a better explanation than what I'm currently giving, go and look at that. But I'll still try my best. Very tired to give it.
Hmm.
Uh, Basically, the snapshots could be invalidated if they were queried by a mobile device, by a light client. And it just so happens that we had enough sessions to cause, a certain amount of these invalidations to happen on 80% of the network. And on 20%, they didn't happen. And lo and behold, about 20% of the network was able to follow the pro hashing chain.
Hmm.
So basically, this is a combination of two very difficult to find issues. And if the question is like, how can we prevent this in the future? Well, we just need more edge case testing. I
Hmm.
do think, though, that it is very hard to find these types of issues.
Yeah.
And like, I could say right now that it won't happen again, but there's no way to know that. It happens
No way to
on it,
verifiably know that, I guess, like definitively.
well, no, it won't happen. This specific issue won't happen again, right? Obviously, right? Because we're going to fix it. We are doing so much testing to make sure that the next time we activate V19 is going to be very smooth. However, issues of this uh, difficulty, in any software project that launches, um, it can happen. You can do everything right. You can have as many tests as you want, and there can still be an issue. And I mean, that's what we're going to basically try to do as best we can is to make sure that percentage uh, of chance goes as close to zero as possible.
Yeah, of course. And so let's touch on what actually. So there's two different. So there's version 19, and that
Hmm.
blew everything up. And then there's version 19.1, which
Hmm.
most of the network is on, and fixed it. And there's 19.2 coming up soon. So, first off, what did 19.1 actually change? Like, how did it fix the problem?
It just delayed the hard fork.
And
So it basically, well, it actually canceled the hard fork.
yeah,
So it didn't fix the problem. It just pushed everything back and to give us more time to issue a fix for the problem.
okay,
That fix is in 19.2. 19.2 is basically the version of 9 that 19 should have been. And at that point, as soon as 19.2 is out, which I just talked to Pasta before coming on here, he says 1 week, 2 weeks at the latest. But I mean, we already have the fix, right? We already have the pull request. We're just testing. We're just making as much. Like we really never want to get into a situation like we were in almost 2 weeks ago now. Yeah, so we're maybe testing it too much.
yeah. Well, you know, if
Yeah.
you do it just a little less and you have a problem, then it's like it's all for nothing. It's the way that kind of thing happens. So that was like a rocky start to, you know, this month, the end of the month, the beginning of next month. But stuff got online, as I mentioned before, as you mentioned, Dash transactions were all in the mempool, and so on that subject, were they instant send locked?
They were at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then they stopped being instant send lock as
Now, does that mean
well. There was
the instant send lock ones were no longer locked, or does that mean just new ones then were not locked?
no, the ones that were locked were locked. We also have the so the benefit of having an instance unlock
Mm-hmm.
is that you know for sure that the transaction can never be double spent. Can't
Mm-hmm.
be double spent by a miner. There can't be like some type of splitting type of tack. That's why people wait for confirmations, right? On other networks. Um, and actually in V18, just to give a little
Mm-hmm.
explanation of how good Instant Send is. Instant Send now is so much better in V18, and we had to make it better because it's being used as a security mechanism for platform to deposit to basically to lock Dash in platform. So um, we what was I saying? Losing my train of thought. Um, help me out. Help me out. Sorry.
Um, about the instant send locks in the mempool, like the transactions that were just in the mempool.
Yeah, yeah. So those were fine. And what I was trying to say, yeah, is that if a transaction is in the mempool and it's on the majority of the network, if you issue another transaction, you can't double spend, right? The network will reject it. However, if it's not instance unlocked, even if you by the way, I shouldn't this isn't like a guide for people who want to attack the network.
Oh yeah, take notes, trolls.
But basically if they're not instance unlocked, um, and you're able to send another transaction and you're able to target the exact miner, you can actually do a double spend, right? And that's the benefit of instance unlocks. Yeah, so we had them at the beginning. We didn't have them the entire time, but I think that a few things are good for us. The first is that I don't think anybody who wanted to attack our network was looking at this event going, they might go down, right? It takes a lot of preparation to do such an attack. And yeah, um, nothing seems to have happened.
Yeah, well that's good. And so it is good that despite there being some issues, um, things worked out people got to use Dash. Everything worked well. Um, Basically, I messaged like Bitrefill and Edge, and then they re-enabled Dash pretty quickly on the Tuesday. And just everything kind of went back to normal. Although before that happened, I tried to buy a gift card on Bitrefill with the few bits of Litecoin that I had, and it took like 10-15 minutes to confirm, and I didn't end up getting to use it. So that pissed me off. But again, one more reminder of like why, it's the one day that like the network itself forces me to not really use Dash. I'm reminded why every other day of my life I want to use Dash, because the other things suck.
Yeah, and sometimes like when I'm forced to use another cryptocurrency, and I don't have that many, right? But like I tell the audience I still have some Bitcoin, right? And when I'm forced to use that, and it takes forever.
It's expensive, and all the stuff that we used to topping at. But I thought that like Litecoin is a good example too, because Litecoin is not expensive and has much quicker block times, but yet still in the private the experience can be a little bit degraded, and it is what it is though. I mean, things are getting a lot better. So that's what we had. We had an annoying snafu, but Core's back on its winning streak, I guess, back doing his stuff. And then now
I would like to say though, one more thing, right? It was pretty impressive on how quickly our network upgraded and how quick people responded. I also had an interesting maybe laugh or something. We got the most visibility that we'd had all year in terms of everybody all of a sudden wanted to talk about Dash. So it was quite interesting to see. But yeah.
Yeah. And the FUD wasn't really that bad, all things considered. Like as far as
it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. A lot of people,
they did right to report it. Like, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have reported it. It was newsworthy, in my opinion.
Yes, of course. But it kind of reminds people that there's something like, I guess when you see an error come up, that it's not just a downstream bug from Bitcoin Core or something like that. When it's something new and then it gets handled very quickly, it's kind of a reminder, because a lot of people just think XYZ coin whatever is dead just because they don't hear about it. But then when you hear about it, it's like, it's still fixing things really quick. Okay, I'm gonna see what they're up to now, because I haven't checked in a while. And so a lot of people came out of the woodwork for that. We even got our old friend Triptol Moose tiptoeing back into the picture. That was funny. But yeah,
saw a lot of people.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But pretty good as far as like getting attention, and it doesn't seem to be
and recovery, like just like how quickly our network upgraded was very impressive.
Yeah, and also it doesn't seem to have affected any like integrations or anything that's kind of upcoming. There's a few that are being worked on, and like for example the Maya protocol, and they're just like, oh, is it fixed? No, we'll keep doing it. So
yeah, I mean, we had the worst outage since 2015, and nobody lost any money. No, and chain locks were down for about a day. I mean, yeah, basically, if and with an error that was very, very bad.
Yeah,
I can't, like, this was basically the worst type of error that you can get, where you have forks with different blocks and some of the network going in one direction. So, like, this was pretty much the worst that you could get. So the fact that one day later everything was fine is really pretty impressive for the network, for the developers, for everybody. I mean, I'm not going to pat myself so much on the back because the bugs still happen. It's horrible, but
yeah, it is a good sign of confidence in the network too, that stuff can be fixed like that, and developers and all that. So let's move on to other stuff. So that was Core. Core's doing great now. Pasta probably cried a lot, but it's okay. I will forgive him. I'm just kidding. But so now we have now we have platform, right? And so remind the viewers at home the version of platform that will hit mainnet is which version again?
It's v0.25, which when it's complete will go into version 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be version 1. Right now we're still for people who don't understand, like, why are you going 25 to 1? It's actually 0.25 right now
to
until
1.0.
Until something hits it hits a production. You generally use minor version numbers.
So Core, right, is version 0.19.1 currently, right? Now, is Core going to be turned into version 1 with the Evo release, or not at all, or just never? That we know.
No. It's going to be. They're not going to be on the same versions ever, right? Core is going to be on version 20.
Mm-hmm. 0.20.
And the version, 20. Mm-hmm. And 20 actually has the code right now. It activates platform. So it's coded in. Actually, this week we merged in the block reward subsidy on platform. Like, we're getting close to the end. The problem with me saying this is that, like, I've come on your podcast 3 times, and I've said we're close 3 times, right? And I want to kind of explain what has transpired and why, like, around New Year, right? I was thinking, and when I said, "Oh, we're a few weeks away," I thought that, and I thought that because we had different parts of the project, right?
Yeah.
We had GroveDB. Well, we'll talk about these maybe if you're more interested in
the
subsequent. We had GroveDB. We had Drive. We had Platform Protocol. We had a part in JavaScript. We had a lot of, and we have TenderDash, right? TenderDash was finishing. The parts that I was working on were finishing, which were GroveDB and Drive. And then there were other parts that I wasn't very attentive to. And I thought that they were much closer to being done than they were. And they just weren't. And basically, when I finally went in and looked and actually, reviewed code, it was not as good as I was expecting. Like, the truth is that me personally, I can't see everything. But the good news now is that I do see everything, because I've worked on, like, Drive and Grove and those parts. They haven't really been changed much in the last months. They were ready, right? They were done. I mean, there's been fixes here and there as we discover new small issues, but for the most part, like, that development ended in January or February or maybe even March. But yeah, and then the other parts of the project.
I think you might be scraping against the microphone there. You hear a little scratcha.
Sorry.
Yeah, keep going.
The other parts of the project, ended up being more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So now those parts of the project. So there were 2 phases of issues there. The first issue was we had this code. I think some people might remember around the time that I became CTO, we decided to move away from JavaScript and to move to Rust. And that was an amazing decision, and we are doing really great because of that. I don't think that we would ever have been able to release if we had stayed with JavaScript, ever, like ever.
Oh, nice.
So, and also the industry, Rust is doing extremely well in the industry. I think Microsoft has now even switched a lot to Rust. A lot of more, and it's getting more and more adoption. And the fact that I mean, it's the language has been around for 10 years, but it's only seen kind of this growth in the last um, year or so. So, once again, where was I going with this? Late, 4 o'clock in the morning for me.
Yeah, so we got up. We're just talking about where our platform versions are today.
Oh
And
yes.
so basically, a lot of stuff has been done for a very long time. Other
Hmm.
stuff that was assumed to be very close out turned out to need a whole lot more, and that's kind of coming together. It's so version
Yeah.
0.25 when it's
Oh yeah.
when it's
But,
released is going to be
mm,
version 1 that's going to launch things as far as
yep.
platforms concerned. So
Yep.
what's the current version that's active on testnet today?
Version 0.24 is currently active. 0.25 is currently active on a DevNet
Mm-hmm.
and is working. Like it's up. So I mean, I haven't seen an error on it
Mm-hmm.
for
For a
I mean,
while.
since I launched it, actually. I
Yeah.
launched it around the time of, I think on Tuesday. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a block 3,000 or 4,000 or somewhere around there by now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, like we're using it, and it's going very well. The big difference between 0.24 and 0.25 is the fact that yeah, so we were going to do that switch from JavaScript to Rust progressively, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had different parts of the project, things that needed to be written from scratch. Um, the storage part that just didn't exist. What we had 2 years ago was a proof of concept, right? And
Yeah.
couldn't. There's no point talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was built from scratch in Rust, except some components that we had already, but generally from scratch. And then we also had the we had Dash Platform Protocol, and we had the execution logic. Now, the Dash Platform Protocol was the first thing that we decided to rewrite into Rust. And then we had the execution logic that we decided originally to just, go to mainnet with it in JavaScript. And for version 0.24, that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
We still had this executor in JavaScript, um, and the problem really comes down to it was very complicated,
Mm.
and you know I personally think that we would have been in the testing, seeing how like errors were popping out, seeing like how it was just basically untenable. I thought that if we went with 0.24, we'd be in the testing phase for 6 months.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we would have like a much lower transactions per second, and we just release slower.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, me and some other people, we did not see the sun for a few weeks, and yeah, 0.25 is basically the executor in Rust, and
Yeah.
then it's a lot cleaner. It's the code is beautiful now.
So when we're looking at, well, first off, it's good to put the JavaScript daemon to rest of to put it to rust. But
Yeah.
it's good to finally do that. I've known that's been a monkey on Dash's back for a while. But so yeah, version 0.25, which is working on DevNet, which means if nothing new crops up, it can be pushed to testnet, right? And then
Yes.
it would be on testnet for a couple of months, and then it would be called version 1 and put to mainnet. Is that kind of
Yep.
accurate?
That's correct.
So there's
Uh,
so again, this is people are going to get really pissed off at me probably for using pumpy logic, but there's a way of saying that Evo is done today. You could twist it. Okay, I'm just
no, don't twist it. Don't
Yeah,
twist
okay.
it. Please don't.
Yes, but
I mean, you want to know what I'm going to be super happy about after all of this
sleep.
is that when there's a problem, it's going to be because of something I did. I have had a very hard time dealing with things that, like decisions that I did not make, and having to defend them, right? But now, when we have, an architecture that I approve of, when we have a language that I approve of, and code that I've reviewed, we're going to be in a good situation. Well, I like if there's a problem, I can own it, right? I can really own it, and I like it's really hard to say, oh, there's this problem, and to constantly give excuses. I want to switch DCG to no longer have excuses, to be able to give excuses. We shouldn't. Excuses are the worst thing ever, and it's painful. And I don't. I mean, professionally, going into this, I don't see another way. Like, we could not have 2 years ago, right? Well, to put it mildly, the code that is going to production, I would say less than outside of TenderDash, right? Outside of TenderDash, I would say less than 5% of it was written 2 years ago.
Wow.
So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's pretty impressive to see where we're gone already. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this whole thing. The thing is, like, I also honestly can't wait for platform to be out for Evo. I mean, obviously when Evo kind of goes away, but also there's a lot of other things to work on. It's just like, so personally, for the past year, for me, a little over a year actually, I've been in this house that's been a fixer-upper that a bunch of chain-smoking hoarders owned. And so we've had, like, rip everything out, repaint everything, get new flooring, knock out a wall, like all this stuff just to be in a house that's, like, livable. And finally there's, like, something to finish on the bathroom, and then then it's like a livable house. And then it's like, finally, now we can start landscaping the yard. Now we can start putting in a nice fire pit. Now we can start decorating. Now we can start, like, there's just this next wave of stuff that I'm just like, I want to be done with, like, emergency mode. So we can just be like, all right, now what else? Now what other cool stuff? And so, I mean, I have a giant list of ideas on that front, but, like, I'm also grateful that Dash works today, and I use it quite a lot. And everything else is just going to be so awesome. And I do use other chains, and some of them do some pretty cool things. But, I'm still like, when I'm looking ahead at stuff, the only things that I think are remotely on the same cool level are things that are way more pie in the sky. Like, what happens when you have your entire, like, car title as an NFT that every time anyone, like, fixes it, every time there's any repairs, that updates the NFT in an immutable way, and the car title actually gets you access to the vehicle. Like, all that kind of stuff is, like, really awesome. Maybe not specific to Dash, but also not existing either. So as far as, like, the thing that's on the horizon, no pun, Zcash, right? But the thing that's on the horizon that, like,
got it.
I think is coolest is still Dash. the thing that I use the most on a day-to-day basis is still Dash. It's so there's a lot of like negativity flying around. I know there's some former OGs in Dash who've like divested and all that, and are like, well, everything else is cooler. Some people are even getting remain nameless on this, are even getting really excited now about Bitcoin L2s, which is just like the most mind-blowing nonsense I've ever heard. But that's a different story. But anyway, I'm just really glad we got to this point. Real quick, just because I have to honor the agreement of the super chats and stuff. We did have so we had a super chat a while ago from Sly. Hi Sly, who said, how do we make sure this does not happen again / can this happen again? But that was while you were in the process of like talking about that stuff. So yeah, that's done. And then Hilawe said, chain halt silver lining. At least no one can say that Dash is not making major changes. Not an ideal way to show it, but it's something. And as I mentioned, like the whole is Dash dead, blah blah blah, and then you just like, oh, something big changed, and then the developers jumped on board, fixed it real quick, and that's a sign of life that I think is a good thing. And I think is kind of, there would have been a bigger price dump from just no issue than from kind of what we had. I don't know. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, what's so interesting though is that like I feel like we had a moment to, well, it was either like shine or what's the opposite of shine?
I don't know.
And
to burn.
To burn. And I'm not saying developers. I'm saying the project whole. Like the fact that it updated so quickly, the fact that like everybody cared. And the worst thing would have been, oh, we have a chain halt and nobody cares. But no, everybody cared.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was yeah, I mean, price might not be at its best, and I don't really like talking about the price, but no, the chain's definitely not dead.
Yeah, and that's really great. And so, like, for context as far as like problems and stuff. So, for example, on the previous show, I just covered that there was a decoy selection bug that was uncovered in Monero that basically affected about 6% of transactions over the last few years. That basically decoy selection didn't, was more predictable basically. And it's just like that's something that gets brushed under the rug, but that's a major thing. Like all these different things over the years, like, oh shit, the core thing might have messed up. And then just talking about other people doing hard things and getting like, wrecked for it. And then Zcash had what they called a sandblasting attack or a spam attack, where basically someone was doing large, like not a lot of transactions, but very many inputs and output transactions. And that was causing literally all mobile wallets to just become non-functional for private transactions. Like and so that was like 6-9 months worth of like downtime on. Can you imagine? Like it was a long time. I mean, and the thing is, some really modern phones with some very specific mobile implementations worked well, and it just took. But it was still like over half of a year, as far as I'm aware, downtime on the most critical feature of the entire, network. And I'm sure that got reflected in the price and all that. And I know a lot of people got upset, and there's a bunch of, and the worst part is there's no like fix. There's a bunch of mitigations, a bunch of things to make it better. And then, of course, let's not forget to twist the knife a little bit with some of our buddies here and just say that, like, the Pulse chain launch has not exactly gone perfectly. And there's other shit. Like, as the great XKCD said, code is hard. And so, like, it's not like we're alone. And not like the Dash world is alone in this, like, sweating bullets when, like, something doesn't work out or, like, it goes down. And I can't think of a single other major thing that hasn't had something like this. And, of course, the Bitcoin Cash world just is launching this thing called Cash tokens, which is like smart contracts, but not global state-based, but UTXO-based. So it's basically doing what Ethereum does, kind of, but in a completely opposite and new way. And all I can see when you talk about opposite and new is just like there's a giant stack of bugs and exploits ahead of you as you're blazing this new trail. And so everyone's in this thing. Dash has been really stable for many years, partially because it sharpened like the Bitcoin model and also made the Mastodon model in 2015. That was a long time ago. A long time to just like make masternodes better, to make instant send better, to make chain locks better, to make everything better. And then now we're starting to embark into new territory with EvoNodes and making things ready to interact with platform. And then the novel serialization thing, the novel BLS signatures that are now being serialized in a more industry standard way because Dash was way ahead of its time on that. It's just like, it's the price of greatness. What can I say?
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds a little optimistic, but I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take it.
Yeah, so we have one more big point to go over, but before that, I have another thing. Just so you get in any questions you guys might have, just start thinking about them and drop them in the live super chat or in the basic live chat, and I'll go to those after I hit the super chat. But Tante Stefana, in her infinite wisdom, asked also, this is in the pre-question stuff, how's the DCG budget holding up, and do we have an accountant watching over the books so we can stay clear of getting in tax troubles? So
obviously we have an accountant.
That's nice.
And so yeah, we have no tax issues.
Okay.
So I mean, also just you only really pay taxes on a company only pays on profits, right? So like in a bear market, there are no profits. So yeah, there would be no tax liability as far as I'm aware. I'm not a tax expert, but that's kind of the way I understand it. But we don't, no worries on that front. We have definitely an accountant. And in terms of our budget, in terms of our what is it called? Like our word is slipping my mind. But yeah, it is dwindling. Over time, we're losing. Well, we're not losing, but the amount of money we have, is going down by about $100,000 a month. And I think at the moment we have around 600, 700,000. I can't be completely sure. It varies because a lot of that is held in Dash. So the situation isn't great. But the thing is that as a lot of people in the company are doing, we keep on marching forward and we try our best to get new features out and hope that with new features and with more confidence in the project, things will get better. Maybe we're all lying to ourselves and maybe that won't actually happen, but the point of all of this is to make products that people are going to use and that people will enjoy. So with that mantra, I think things will work out eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are working on some, lots of stuff to get the end user products going, getting people using the stuff. There's a couple of big, I guess, integration release thingies that have been like just percolating right below the surface for a long time that any day could get kind of released, and that's some good stuff. And of course, big ad campaigns that are kind of waiting to be executed around those things. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of stuff. Marina was actually talking to me about seeing if we can get a proposal in at some point for running an ad campaign around GroveDB, which that's interesting. I don't know how premature that is, but that seems like that could be pretty interesting.
Yes. Well, I'll let people know that I was really hoping to come on today and announced version 1 of GroveDB, but of course everything in software takes longer. Version 1 is ready. The last issue that we had, it was basically fixed today. I mean, that the reason why we hadn't released anyways. But the real thing is that we want to do everything properly. We have a website that is semi-live. It shouldn't have gone live, but it did.
It looks cool.
Anyways, it looks cool. People who are watching can go to grovedb.org. However, please don't tweet about it yet. We want to make a big splash when it's ready in probably a week or two. We have a lot of extra stuff coming around GroveDB.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is also quite interesting to look at the other projects that people think are, potentially up there, and they have nothing, or they have something in like a year from now. They really don't. Like, we have no competition in what we're trying to do right now, as far as like, yeah. So, I mean, they will eventually get there probably, but they just don't have. Some of these projects say, yeah, we can prove our data. And how do you think they prove their data? When you insert the data, you have a proof that the data was inserted. Great. But you can't, like, if you insert data, I can't come later and be like, hey, what did he put in the database? Like, it's not possible to query. So GroveDB is the first project that we can find that has working proof queries. Now, there actually is another one that is interesting on the horizon called Space and Time. I'm not sure if anybody has heard of it, but yeah, it's just it's has some negatives. It's not open source. It's also not ready yet, and and you have to pay to use it, as far as I am aware. But,
it's so real quick, just at some point, I'm sure we're going to go over in a much more detail about GroveDB and all the different pieces of Evo. But GroveDB is essentially just the database that stores the data that Evo references, right?
Yes. It's based off of a paper by a brilliant cryptographer that probably deserves more recognition than I can give him. And I need to actually ask him if he's okay with me saying his name live in the future. But it was some of the ideas were based off of that, but then some of the ideas were based off of stuff that we came up with, and it's basically it's a hierarchical authenticated data structure type database, which is, as far as I know, the first production one to exist, which is, I mean, basically when we were looking at like, how do we do this? This is what we promised. How do we do it? Okay, nothing exists. Okay, let's figure out how to build it. And I mean, we did. So
as far as like the comparison chart, and like I'm always I always mock those, like, the comparison infographic type things, because usually it's meant to pump your scammy shit coin or whatever it is. It's always just like default privacy, staking, this, that, just like tack on a bunch of like features to just say you're better than all the other shit. But this is interesting. So of all these different, so there's GroveDB, then there's ImmuDB, ProvenDB, Trillion, and BigChainDB.
You want to just bring it? Can you just bring it up?
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me actually do that. But as far as like, so first of all, do you mind, for an idiot like me, just saying like what are those things?
Yeah, sure. Just bring it up, and I'll. So, some of those projects are amazing, by the way. I'm not going to say bad.
So those are well, I mean, you can obviously say, you can always obviously say stuff about what they are, because
Sure. Sure.
um,
So like for example, Trillion was a project that we actually considered using originally. It's made by Google, um, and we thought about, okay, when we started this, how are we going to build what we want? Should we take a project that already exists and modify it? Yeah, basically, how do we build this? Trillion was one of the ones that we
okay.
looked at. Of
All right.
obviously
I'm
they
putting it
didn't.
up on the screen, by the way, right now. The
Okay, okay, okay.
GroveDB.org, for those of you who want to look at a prematurely released site, but it
Yeah,
still looks
there's
nice. So we see Grove, Immu, Proven, Trillion, and Big Chain. So are those all associated with cryptocurrency chains, or are they something separate?
Sure, sure. The fact that I don't see it, the viewers do see it, though, right?
Yes, they do. Just you know the site. Just go to grovedb.org and scroll down to the
Yeah,
comparison table.
yeah, yeah. Give me- Yeah. So actually, what we're doing is there's a very small comparison table here, but we
Mm-hmm.
actually in the site that is going to be released, we're going to have like this
Mm-hmm.
massive comparison table with like 3 times more projects because everybody's like, oh, and what about this one? And what about this one? And what about this one? Can you look at this one?
Yeah.
And that's not very easy always to show in like a small thing, but more people might be interested in a bigger comparison. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So inclusion proofs basically says, is this data there? And like ImmunoDB, ProvenDB, Trillion, they have like, is this specific key value there? Now, non-inclusion proofs is this key not there? Can you
Mm-hmm. Of
prove that
course.
something is not there? The other ones don't have that. You can't prove non-existence.
So
You
real
can.
quick, why is non-existence important to prove?
Um, well, I mean, there are many situations. For example, like if you're playing a game and did anybody win the game yet? Normally,
Mm-hmm.
you would have a winner, and the winner would be there in the
Mm-hmm.
like the win box. But if you're proving that nobody is there, then you prove that nobody has finished the game yet or
Mm-hmm.
won the game, right? And there's a lot of things that you could do with non-inclusion proofs.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Uh,
It helps to see a non-inclusion proof. It's better than it can be, in my mind at least. It could be faster than going through all the inclusion proofs first, right? Then has this happened? No. Has that happened? No. Has that happened? No. Has this happened? No. Or is it lacking this? Boom. It's a lot quicker in some situations. At least that's what my lizard brain tells me. Is that true?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It also like allows for things like has this person sent me a contact request, right? And then
Yes.
you can see that no, you're not going to find all the people in the system and say, did that person send me? I mean, there's a million, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just want to know if one did, and you can prove that that person did not. Now, in reality, that's not how Dashbay is going to work because we also have complex queries, which are basically secondary index queries. Like this website again is was not meant to even be live. This is like this is like an initial version, right? And there's going to be a lot of fixes as well. But complex queries are basically secondary index queries.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not secondary index queries because the other projects definitely don't have secondary index queries. I guess there's a mistake here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we're the only one with secondary index queries,
Yeah.
which basically are, and this is why the site's not ready to go out, right? Um, the secondary index queries are saying like, okay, give me all the people that have sent me a contact request and prove that there are nobody else, right? That there can't be anybody else. So that's where GroveDB is really shining,
Mm-hmm.
because it proves a non-existence of the extremities of your query. So it gives you back elements, and then it says, oh, there's none to the left, none to the right. And because of internally, it uses unidirectional references to actual data. Kind of complex on how it works. And yeah, basically, you can prove that the data you got back is the data in the system, and there can be no extra data. And there is no other project that does that.
Nice. And just looking down this like list and stuff. Obviously, operation costs, meaning it's cheap while the other ones are not. Is that kind of what it's?
No. The database itself allows you to know how much in operation costs it took.
Oh, okay.
And so the bigger table basically runs this down. We also have estimated operation cost, which is another pretty advanced feature where you can know the estimated cost without actually querying the database at all. So we have actually three things on costs, why it took so long. We have operation costs, we have estimated costs, and we have worst case costs. So all of those are coming out into production with platform. And but the other projects just don't have that. And it's important to know like the operation costs, because you need to know like, okay, when I queried my data, when I inserted data, how much did it actually cost of resources of the system to be able to pay for it. Yeah. So when you know the exact like cost in resources that your system is using, you can make users pay for that. And but it's it's not that high.
Yeah. So this is a pretty interesting achievement, of course. And I definitely think it's going to be, that's when you start to like, catch people's attention, when you start to see like, wow, this is an actual complicated project. One of those things is, I think that a lot of people are going to have to really readjust their expectations of what Dash is. A lot of people think of it as like a roided up Litecoin kind of thing, where it's just like very similar to that, and just like, oh, but the masternodes were cool. And then, oh, you got the privacy that gets you delisted everywhere. And then you got the instant transactions and then some other stuff. And that's cool. And that's like been the story of Dash since 2015, 16. It's just like all that stuff. And then there's like, people don't realize instant send by default is fantastic. And then chain locks and stuff. But a lot of people are just thinking like, oh, we'll slap on some easy usernames and do some other like invoicing type things. And then that'll be it. And it's like, dude, they've spent like 7 freaking years doing that easy stuff. That's kind of like the perception, right? And obviously, if you're in the weeds, you kind of know how much more is being done, but also how complicated those things are. And so at some point, delivering Evo is going to be like, oh, yay. Like, finally, I get to do contact lists. And then they're going to be like, all right, is that it? But then at some point, you have to just see, like, I think there has to be, like, a lot of hype around these, like, technical components, such as the data side chain, right? Such as, or platform chain or whatever you call it. And then around, Cosmos-based, blah, 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 or whatever buzzwords that make people freak out these days. And then talk about, GroveDB, state-of-the-art DB. Again, people like me are gonna have to come up with bullshit like the Filecoin killer and like stuff that like I already feel you cringing on the inside from how wrong that all is. I'll find something that's accurate but is sizzling too. But I'll have to just be like, bro, this is here. You got this, and it's just like, it's not just Evo, it's just usernames and contact lists. And so we'll have to be like really hype all that stuff up.
And there's something like, we're talking about GroveDB right now, but there's also something that like doesn't get it, that I haven't talked that much about more recently because it's less, well, in my mind, but TenderDash. TenderDash is not just like a clone of Tendermint with a few changes for Dash. No.
Mm-hmm.
Tenderdash. So in the original Tendermint white paper, they basically said that their goal was to go to SBFT, which is scalable Byzantine fault tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were using Tendermint, well, we needed a consensus engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at many consensus engines, and none worked. Just like no database worked, because what we're trying to do is just very new, very difficult. So, what we decided to do was go with a consensus engine and modify it for our needs. Now, in for Tenderdash, yeah, we basically did that. We built out the SBFT, scalable Byzantine fault tolerance, using threshold, BLS signatures. um, and I'm actually gonna go full circle here, because the reason why we had the V19 chain halt was that we were upgrading our BLS signature scheme so that
Mm-hmm.
eventually Tenderdash could have inter-blockchain communication. That's basically the. I mean, we want to be part of a big ecosystem of inter-blockchain communication, and you have to have a language that everybody agrees on, and people are not going to agree on a non-standard library. Anyways, the point is that, yeah, I mean, Tenderdash by itself is an amazing achievement. GroveDB is an amazing achievement. We also are going to have a lot of very cool stuff in platform, like DashPay. Um, so, I think that, yeah, as you said, the expectations are just, because we always say, like, okay, soon, soon, soon. A lot of people have given up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, well. I mean, I can't say soon anymore. All I can do myself is like
Put it
work
out
as
there.
hard to get it out, and show people, like, say, okay, this is out now, it's working. Um, people can use it. So
Yeah.
I think I had this friend of my father who sadly passed away, but
Mm-hmm.
he had a catchphrase. So I'll give him a little nod right now. He always used to say, "The proof is in the pudding."
Yeah, of course. This is some Evo pudding,
Mm-hmm.
dust off the bag from 2015, but, mix it up. It's going to work. Uh, One thing's for sure, and I would do want to, like, from like a promotional standpoint kind of thing, address the soon thing. A lot of people have gotten really pissed off at the soon. And I know it's big into, the whole crypto world. Everyone's about stuff like that. It's very pumpy, whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's unavoidable. All right. There's ways you can season. There's ways you can, like, make sure you temper your announcements and stuff like that. But there's, in the binary of soon versus not soon, in the binary of too soon or not too soon, that is the question. Because if you do not soon, it's just like, just working. Everyone's just working. And then you're just like, all right, well, then you're freaking going nowhere. Like, people have trust in you and in the project and give you money and stuff like that. And then you just got, like, nothing to show for it. And then at some point, you're just like, oh, by the way, we had this release, or we had this integration, or something like that. And you're like, oh, what is that? Huh? What's it? And then, like, there's, like, no time for education, anticipation, or any of that kind of stuff. Of course, it sucks when you're like, Dash is going to be on Maya soon.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you just don't, like, otherwise it's just going to happen and no one cares. Like, you got to build it up, especially with things like that, where you're like, okay, you need people to get excited about this stuff so they start getting it integrated into wallets and service providers. And then you need to have a lot of liquidity in those pools so people can actually start trading. And then you need a lot of volume to make sure this is profitable for. You need to build. Everyone needs to come together to make this thing happen. And so when you're saying soon, well, I've been saying soon for Maya forever, on their end for one, but also eventually it'll happen. And it sucks that everything's soon, but it's better than nothing. And it's just like a lot of Dash's achievements in the last half decade have been put into something that hasn't existed yet. And so if you don't have any kind of anticipation of this, like, then what separates Dash from Decred or eCash or freaking Litecoin, or just, like, it's just, okay, it's better in a lot of ways, but like in like very minor ways. Like, why are you sticking with it? Like, one of the reasons I think, for example, why people are into Zcash is because the team develops like super cutting edge, bleeding edge privacy tech as far as zero knowledge proofs and stuff. And it's just like everything, like, you could just say, and now the Monero team is looking at using their same tech for their stuff because the decoy model is annoying. And so it's like, why would you stick with a project like Zcash? Because you have that anticipation. And so why is Dash not just a better Litecoin? And Evo is the reason. And Evo doesn't exist today, really, yet, fully. But although I did make the case that it's already done. Even forget that, though. But that's the reason why you stick with something like this, because you see a lot of stuff being built and the possibilities and all the cool stuff that comes out of that. And so, yeah, of course, I think that the way forward is too soon or not too soon is definitely too soon, but to soon responsibly. Please soon responsibly. That might be a little tagline, just like when Evo. That might be a little tagline in the future, is soon responsibly.
There was something that you said before that you said, like, once we get hit mainnet and we get the first version out, and then we're going to be able to do all the cool stuff. Mm-hmm. That's also how I feel, right? Mm-hmm. And you talked about Zcash. I must admit, I really do think that they have really cool tech. So one of the cool parts is like the zero knowledge proofs, and of course we're looking. Yeah. So somebody had recently talked and asked, I think, on our Discord, why isn't GroveDB using virtual trees? And we actually spent some time looking into virtual trees, and they can't work for GroveDB because GroveDB needs certain properties, because it needs the property that it's too complicated to really explain. But yeah, it rotates, and when you pay for something, you pay just for that node, and there are no intermediate nodes, etc. But, and this is actually thanks to AI, we take the polynomial commitments from zero knowledge proofs, which are like a part of zero knowledge proofs, and we basically asked AI, are AVL trees, which is a type of tree that we use in GroveDB, are they incompatible with polynomial commitments? And the AI said no, they're not. And like, it's true. And then we spent a lot of time on research looking into this, and yeah, that is like a really cool avenue to go down, because we could get much smaller proofs. And this is like, okay, obviously not something that we need to do right now, but as a cryptographer, making things smaller, more efficient. Well, I'm not really a cryptographer. Virgil would kill me if I said that.
Yeah.
But Virgil is our head of research. But the point is that, like, as somebody who basically just a geek, this type of stuff so much more fun, right? Than the easier problems, right? That we're currently working on. So yeah, like, and what can we get from polynomial commitments? We can just get like mobile sites working with these proofs super quick, like just like flash quick, and a lot of other stuff. Like, it's already going to be flash quick. I mean, the phones are just very powerful. But it's like somebody, what was it, 15 years ago, I bought a computer with 1 gigabyte of RAM, right? And somebody asked me, like, oh my God, that's so much RAM. What could you ever even use that much RAM for, right? There's going to be stuff in the future. And there was, right? Now AI, I have 64 gigs of VRAM on my computer, right? And I was trying to run an AI model the other day, and yeah, it used up all of the video RAM. And I'm sure new computers are just going to be like, 512 gigabytes of VRAM at some point soon because of the explosion of AI. But yeah, so the I'm looking forward to that like more uh, fun part where we have something out there, people can use it, and we can then work on the fine tuning. Obviously, like that's just not going to be the entire. That's not going to be everybody in the project. Probably one person or two people are going to work on that at some point. But yeah, there's that. There's like lat long proofs stuff where you want to prove like the closest restaurant to you that takes Dash, right? And you know where you are, but you don't want to tell the system where you are.
Of course.
Right? But you still want to get the proof showing that this restaurant is the closest to you without revealing your actual location, right? To the system. Stuff like that, right? These are all like really advanced crypto things.
So real quick on that kind of example. So because I've been dabbling with, thanks to the one and only Naomi Brockwell, now I am very well aware that my phone is indeed spying on me. And so I've done everything. I'm starting to, like, this is a graphene phone, Google Pixel on graphene. I'm like starting to go down like the de-Googled rabbit hole, which is very difficult in some ways. Thank you for having APK files for all the good Dash stuff, by the way. That's not the same with other projects always. But so that's one of the hardest things is like when you're using navigation, like maps. And it's like, how do you find out what is close to what, right? How do you find out how to get from here to there unless you let the centralized service that you're using track your every move? But like, what if you don't have to? What if it knows how to get you there from where you're at, but it doesn't know where you're at, and you can kind of like access that data and just go? And it's like the first ever actual private maps that works well. That could be cool.
That could be very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just like there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I'm sooning so hard right now.
I see the future like being heavily driven by blockchain and AI. I think there are going to be two main pillars of the next. I mean,
that sounds like every like college bro on like a date would say something like that, but it's also true. Like it's kind of funny how it's like so dumb to say that, but also so accurate and smart, I guess, to say that at the same time.
Yeah, and I also think that there is going to be something else, right? And something that probably isn't said that much. With AI, everything can also be faked. So how do you prove something in a world where nothing is actually provable? Well, where everything can be faked. Well, actually, something is provable. The proofs on platform, right? And that could be a very interesting angle. Whereas a lot of, if you want to know if something is true, maybe platform can be used as a source of proof. Now, I don't know exactly what that would look like in the long run, because it's like more of like a vague idea. But right now, you're always interacting with a centralized source of proof, right? That you trust your news outlet that gives you some news, or you trust, but things videos, feeds, a lot of stuff can be tampered with. Not so much with GroveDB. I mean, with platform. So, I mean, like, I'm not going to say like every system out there is like has a problem. Obviously not, right? Like if you see like on your website right now, there's probably a a lock, right? And you're getting an SSL certificate. All that's true, and what you're watching right now. But let's imagine in a future where our conversation that you're watching right now between me and Joel could be completely faked by AI in 5 years.
I mean,
You're not even sure that
2 years. Let's. I've seen some of that
well,
shit. It's crazy. I mean, did you know? In fact, you guys watching that the profile picture. I mean, the picture thumbnail for this very podcast. It's not really Sam. That's some weird AI generated futuristic art, some nonsense that I fed a few different of his pictures in to make it look kind of like him. So, I mean, and this is like my super ghetto first day on Midjourney. I'm sure I could fake a lot of other things a lot better, especially if I give it like photorealistic prompts and stuff. Because that was literally like an art thing, but I tried like, and that's just today. Like, give it like literally like 2 years. You can already. I mean, you can 2 years. I mean, I don't know. I could fool a lot of people with a fake podcast between us where neither of us actually participated if you give me a week. I could figure out how to fake it, maybe not super convincingly, but convincingly enough that some people would be fooled. Now, give it another 2 years, it's over. No?
But realize what you're saying, right?
Yes.
If you can fake us in 2 years talking like we're currently talking, right, with all the temporal cohesion and all those problems that currently exist fixed, that also means that we can have movies of anything anybody thinks of made for us with whatever actors we want just from a prompt, right?
Yes. And
you want to see.
Let's leave the spank chain side of the equation out of this entirely, you dirty people. But like, as far as like science fiction and things, it's like, what if like
you want to see a combination of The Matrix and The Lord of the Rings in one movie?
Or even better, what if you want to see the Hobbit films that didn't suck? What if you want to see like all your listen? They didn't suck. I thought they were good. They weren't not nearly as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I'm just saying, as someone who's read The Hobbit for many times before my balls dropped and stuff, even. I mean, come on. Anyway. But my point is, there's so much cool stuff, but having something verifiable, like if there is a like, how do you know it's like the official movie, or how do you know it's just not someone with a fanfic that he just put into a prompt and then got a movie out of? And it's like, well, that's not a fanfic. That's this guy's idea. It's not the real. And then how do you know?
Yeah,
there's an NFT for that.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not so sure right now, like how if that could even work. If you could actually prove this with a platform, but I have a feeling that there will be mechanisms to prove with blockchain to basically verify that like streams are authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, exciting times. A lot of exciting sooning to be done. Soon all will be well. We'll cure every societal ill thanks to the power of Duff. Et cetera, et cetera. Might as well wrap this up. We're getting close to the end here. Where would you direct people's attention if you could? Shill-o'clock.
You're asking somebody at 4:45 a.m. to come up with a novel idea. That's not going to work very well.
Well, follow him on Twitter at Sam Westrich, and he will tweet when there's an emergency and probably not otherwise. But that's a good place to follow him, especially when he's arguing with mining pools about how things are really their fault. That's not exactly what he said, but I'm just being funny. Yeah,
there was no fault by the mining pool.
Yes. So use Dash. That's what I would shill. Use it. I mean, if anyone listening to this doesn't know how to spend it on real world things, hit me up because I will help you. I know a lot of ways you can pay your bills, your everyday bills. A lot of services out there. I know just a lot of things. So I surprised a lot of OG MNOs who were like, oh shit, I realized I can spend Dash on this, and now they're doing it, and that's more money going through the system, more, numbers going up, more exchange volume, all that kind of stuff. And that kind of stuff is going to be very important as soon as we have Maya, and now we have people staking, right? Liquidity providing for Dash. And then the volume going through there makes it more attractive to own Dash because you get paid for that stuff. And yeah, just more volume helps everything. Let's get this thing moving forward. And the last thing I got to shill is, as far as I know, the first ever public after party, right? There's a Twitter space going on the Dash community Twitter. It's Dash_community. That's starting in about 10 minutes. And it is recorded, and it is like live, like anyone can hear you who's tuning in. But anyone can jump in. You need to be on your phone, not your computer, in order to speak. But you can, if you want to join from your computer, just listen. You can do it. And there's no agenda. We're just gonna hang out and talk about more Dash stuff after this. And so yeah, feel free to go in there. You can do it over dinner and then just like chime in, just swallow real quick and chime in, and then whatever else. And yeah, we'll have that going for a while. Maybe, who knows? We'll see. Half an hour, something like that. And then there might be an after party after that. But we'll try to. Ryan has kind of admonished the, he's kind of admonished the whole like privacy of the after party, because the after party was just like a spontaneous thing that other people started. I just started joining, and so now we're making it public. Now the after party's public. There may or may not be an after party, but that's it. So where can you go? Twitter.com/dash_community, or just Dash community, and there will be a thing there. Anything I missed out on?
Sounds good. I'll probably be there for the first half an hour till I pass out.
Yes, I'll be sure to kick you or mute you or something when you start going.
That's what happened to Pasta when we were fixing the issue. He just passed out on his computer.
Did you wake him up, or did you just like let him?
No, he was. There was no waking him up. He just wasn't. I mean, it was. He actually came back around like 2.5 hours later. He was like, "What? Where am? What's going on?" And then we had to tell him the truth. There was. I mean, it was. You didn't dream it. Our chain really did halt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that sucks. I've had some freaky dreams lately too, but we'll leave that for a different subject. Anyway, like, comment, share, subscribe, all the stuff that YouTubers are supposed to do. And next month on the Dash podcast should be the Lord of Ionia, Marshall. It's coming on to hopefully shill something really cool. So let's wait for that. But in the meantime, have a good time, everyone. Actually stay dashy. Don't just have it on your Twitter handle. And yeah, I'll see you guys pretty soon. Bye-bye.